All right. Happy Monday. A few people joining here over here on TikTok. And we have it here on YouTube and X like we always do. Every Monday and Wednesday night, we go live and do the question and answer that you guys love. At least it seems like you do. Everybody always asks really good questions. Missed you guys Wednesday night last week. But we had our event here in Dallas for the Mastermind members, which was really cool. Had about 150 people come out there at the W. We rented out the restaurant there on the bottom floor. Just blown away by the community and everybody that showed up. It was super cool. We do these events pretty frequently. Try to get things done. Like once a quarter, just to give back to the community and have real life like interaction between people. We spend all this time on social media and YouTube, and we create a lot of content, but there in the community, there's just something different about shaking somebody's hand, looking them in the eye, and doing business the old-fashioned way, which you don't really get that same experience, through Zoom calls or over social media here. So it's really cool to have that in-person feel and get that done. Looked at our office that we're going to be getting here in Dallas in the near future, which would be really cool as well. And then we had our Digital Fusion Summit the next evening there at the W at the top of the building. Put that on. Just want to say thank you to all the sponsors, Algos, Texas Blockchain Council. We had Arch Lending. We had XDC. We had Constellation. We had Anchorage was our title sponsor. Super big shout out to those guys. Appreciate them for doing that the second time. Awesome to see them up there on stage talking about what they're doing with their federally chartered bank and all the things that they're bringing to the forefront for the industry. And then we also had Compliers, which is our compliance team. So if you're in digital assets and you're looking for compliance, David Martin could be your guy. So anyway, super cool time. There was a post earlier today. Our CIO, Matt Schneider, put it out. And he posted the two photos. So last year in September, we had, I think, 9 people in total on the team, and we rolled 20 people deep into the event this year. Flew everybody in, did some team building and other stuff. I think that stuff's super important for culture and just camaraderie and work environment. So really excited to be able to do that and get everybody in town. And it was we'd rented a co-working space last year that was just down the street from the W, and it was completely full. It was like a 18-seat table in the back, and we had it all the way wound out and was piling over on the side. So it's just really cool to see the growth that we've experienced in a short period of time. And that's thanks to you guys, right? Like if there wasn't demand in the market for the services that we're providing at Digital Ascension Group and Digital Wealth Partners, we wouldn't be growing, right? So shout out to you guys. Appreciate everybody that wants to work with us and custody their assets and be able to generate returns on their XRP to be able to, potentially even live off of it if the returns are good enough. These are not structured income products, not yet. We're working on them. But we do have the ability to generate returns on XRP, both in kind and in cash. And we'll pay our first distributions from the fund to people here in July. So excited to see that coming across the line. Nothing crazy this month. I think the returns on the funds are like 75 basis points, but with the market where it is, we've had a lot of volatility over the last month, a lot of sideways action. If you are able to generate, 1% a month on your stuff, that's still pretty good. So again, we'll see where we end up this month, but super excited for that to get across the line. And again, huge shout out to everybody that's in the mastermind and everybody that's here on social media. Just want to say I'm genuinely grateful and really appreciate the support. And it was really cool to see people come out in droves and be there at the Mastermind event. And then we had a lot of people really excited about the Digital Fusion Summit. A lot of comparisons to XRP Vegas, but better. Those aren't my words. I like, DAI and Brad over there, what they're doing, but, a little friendly competition doesn't hurt either. So excited to be there in Vegas. here in just about a month away for XRP Vegas. We'll be there from Tuesday through Sunday for Bitcoin 2025 and for XRP Vegas at the end of the week. So if you like both of them, you like one of them, you like neither, whatever it is, if you're interested in crypto, I think it'll be a pretty interesting week there in Vegas. A lot of side events, a lot of dinners, a lot of things going on. We got something every single night, Tuesday through Saturday that week. So we'll be there, and should be a good time. Lots of things going on in the market too. We got the CME that's come out and said that they are going to launch futures on XRP on May 19th. That's a very big deal. And the reason for that is we have a few futures ETFs for XRP that have already, gone. Well, one's gone live. We got another one going live 2 days. Wednesday this week, we will see the second XRP ETF go live, both short and long positions. That's ProShares. ProShares is kind of the leader in futures ETFs. It was one of the first people to launch the Bitcoin and Ethereum futures ETFs. So for them to be stepping in the ring here for XRP is a big deal. And you always, traditionally, up to this point, you've had futures ETFs go live before the spot. So this is really good to see that the SEC is approving these futures ETFs for XRP in particular. And it's, a stepping stone toward the spot ETFs, which is where the big money is. That's where they start locking up a lot of XRP, and we should see some pretty substantial price movement to the upside. But I don't know that we're going to see those spot ETFs go live any sooner than the 19th. And the reason for that is Bitcoin futures went live on the CME in 2017. And Ethereum was after that a little bit. And that's actually what caused the top in the market for Bitcoin back in 2017 in December. And XRP ran after that, right? I think January 4th. Was previous all-time high for XRP. But thank you, babe. My wonderful wife with the tea. She always comes through. So anyway, the Grayscale spot ETF, its first approval date or last day that they can approve or deny it is going to be May 22nd, just a few days after the CME goes live for XRP futures here in May. So I think that 3-day window could be pretty magical for other big players moving into the space. You might see Fidelity, BlackRock, Vanguard, all throw their hat in the ring with XRP ETFs or spot ETFs after the CME goes live for XRP. So I don't know what we'll see for price appreciation, over the next 20 days here. It could go parabolic, it could go sideways, it could go down. You got some other things that we've been talking about for a long time. You got the reverse carry trade. You've got a lot of things festering in the market that could cause some downward momentum, but you could see a lot of upside, and then it could just continue up once the ETFs go live, right? We saw Bitcoin ETFs run up the price even before they went live, and then continue to run up the price post of them going live. So we could see that with XRP. We've already seen a big move back in November and December last year. Once the ETFs were announced, we saw some institutional buying come in. We've seen sustained volume with TWAP and VWAP to maintain it here, over $2, back up to $2.30 ish today, down, back up from, just earlier in the month. When they launched the 2 times leverage long XRP ETF, we were down just the next day there on the 9th. XRP was at $1.76 as a low. So if the people that bought in, and rolled in that first day $50 million in volume on XXRP have already seen a pretty good return on that investment. And never any financial advice here. I'm not a financial advisor. If you want to speak with financial advisors around your crypto, you can reach out to Digital Wealth Partners. It's an SEC registered RIA that will actually provide you financial advice on your crypto. So, but yeah, I think that there's some potential there for that ETF. If you do have qualified capital, if you're in a 401k or IRA, that would give you exposure to XRP, the underlying asset. Will actually be futures for XRP. So good opportunity in my book. We'll see if that ends up being right or not. So that's just kind of a high level where things are at. We got Paul in and running things along. New SEC chair, excited to see him, take the helm and really kind of push things toward where we want them to be. But I'm going to go ahead and hop into the questions here. We got a lot of them running up over here on TikTok, so I appreciate you guys taking the time out on a Monday night to run it down with me here in the chat. We've got Texas Honey Badger. They say, let's get the party started. Love it. Let's see here. We've got 5-star painters. They say Shane Ellis Theory was a good read. Thanks. Oh, cool. You went out and checked that out. So anybody that hasn't read the Shane Ellis Theory, highly recommend. He talks about Bitfinex or another exchange becoming a liquid and have to utilize XRP to be able to stand themselves back up and provide liquidity for those transactions. So they say, I saw your video on dark pools that went out today. Brittany, I don't know what Brittany's last name is. There's been a lot of questions that we've got on social media. And so, I felt like it was probably a good topic to discuss. And it seems to be well received by people. He says, wouldn't they be able to run invisible indefinitely? Thus, the price never changes or the moves. See, this is the misconception that you're going to get from a lot of people. They think that there's some type of infinite supply in the background for XRP, and there's not. There are big players that do want to buy and sell XRP at scale, and they will participate in the dark pools, but eventually those people are going to run out, especially if we're seeing price appreciation and we're seeing the actual utility of the asset, or it gets another designation, we get stablecoin regulation. There's a lot of reasons why people will just want to hold their XRP, especially if they have large amounts of it. And so then the only option will be to go to exchanges. Because there won't be enough liquidity in the dark pools to be able to cover the buy orders that are going to be there. And that's when you're going to see huge demand on the exchanges that's far in excess of what we see today and why the price has just been trending sideways here. You'll see the chart gap up. It could be 2, 3, 5, 10, 12, 20x before there are sell orders. And especially, there's a lot of things out there that allude to the fact that XRP is going to be a very high price. I think most people that are in XRP understand that they're waiting for a significantly higher price, and most of them don't want to sell until they get to those price points. There's plenty of people that do want to sell at $5, $10, $15, $20, $25, $50. But those people, I think, with the volume that's going to come in off the ETFs and the other things where XRP is going to be required, that'll get ate up anyway. The little bit of retail selling, and again, this is just because retail only has, I don't know, maybe 1 to 2 billion XRP in total. There's not enough to cover the demand that's going to be insatiable from exchanges and spot ETFs and futures market and all the other things that are going to transpire here. So they're going to have to move to exchanges, and it will have to push the price up to a level where people are willing to sell. And most people in the XRP community or XRP family, they're not giving it up for anything less than 3-4 digits here, So that's where I think the misconception is with the dark pools. There's not an infinite supply. There's a finite amount of XRP available there. And these brokers do source liquidity, but at some point, there's not going to be any more liquidity to source. And people aren't going to be willing to sell at these low prices. He gave me the $5 later. Appreciate you on the super chat. Hopefully that answered your question, and I appreciate you being here tonight. Hall says, how will XRP benefit from asset tokenization on the XRPL? So most of the real world tokenization for the XRPL isn't going to happen on the mainnet. The EVM sidechain, according to Ripple, is going to go live at the end of this month. It's in beta right now. So ROUSD hasn't even affected XRP at all. So that anybody that's telling you that like XRP is going to go to the moon because of ROUSD, they don't know what they're talking about. All of ROUSD up to this point has been minted on Ethereum. Any exchanging of that stablecoin is happening on Ethereum. It's not happening through XRP. Once the EVM sidechain goes live, then they'll be able to settle through XRP. And I think you're going to see a lot more growth at that point. I think you're going to see USDC migrate over there to that EVM sidechain. You just saw Circle announce their payment business globally the other day, which is a big deal. So yeah, I think we need the EVM sidechain to be live, and I think you're going to need them to test and trial that for a little bit and prod. So I don't know if you guys have ever developed software, and I don't claim to be an expert. We have a software company. I've had my problems over the last 2 years in developing stuff, really 3 years. So I still don't feel competent there, but I can tell you from experience, things that are run in beta don't always work exactly as you have them planned in prod or production. And so when they push this live and it interacts with the mainnet, I think they're going to need a 2-3 week period here where they test and trial things, just like they did when they first started minting RLUSD. They did a couple and then they did a bigger one and then they burnt some, and they made sure all the functionality worked on Ethereum. I think they'll have to do all the same things on the EVM sidechain over the next 2 or 3 weeks before futures goes live. And then we have the ETFs and potentially, the unwind of the reverse carry trade and a lot of things I've been talking about for a long time. So we need that EVM sidechain and hooks. Both of these networks allow for smart contract capability, and anything that's a real world asset, a tokenized security, a bond, a debt note, a derivative, whatever it is, there's constraints around the transactions that happen between the parties. And you need certain things to be, there needs to be qualifications for people to participate in things. So that's why we have digital identity native to the XRPL. That's why they're passing credentials, which will allow for accreditation and other things tied to your, AML KYC passport or your KYB passport that's on the XRPL. And then you'll be able to share that hash. They'll only get what they need to the counterparty that wants you to participate in a marketplace or have the capability to purchase or participate in a transaction. You have all these contingencies that are required for real world assets. And so they're going to be issued on the EVM sidechain and also on hooks. And then those can settle through XRP, because they'll be tied to the mainnet. So anyway, that's where things are at. And that's how it would benefit is once there's large amounts of assets tokenized, the trading volume settling through XRP is actually what will drive the price higher. Just tokenizing assets doesn't do anything. It's just value sitting there unless people are actually trading it back and forth and money's passing hands. And, these assets are, that's why they're going after Swift. Swift does 5 trillion a day in volume. The FX market does 6 point something trillion a day in volume. The back end of the stock market is 5 to 600 billion a day in volume. So the volume of transactions is actually what's going to drive XRP's price higher for settling those transactions and sustain the price at those levels. But the tokenization of the assets themselves is not actually going to do much. Teresa's has a go. Thank you for the super chat. They say, hey, Jake, thank you and your team. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and join the mastermind. Appreciate you, man. I try to mention things here and there, but I also want to provide people a lot of value and answer their questions. So it's a nice reminder. Appreciate you on the super chat and the like and subscribe. Like you said, if you do get value from this, it does really help the algorithm over here on TikTok. Like, subscribe, same thing over here on YouTube and X. It is very much appreciated if you guys would do that. 5-star painter again says, Jake, do you have anyone on your team strong enough to hold me down from buying a Lambo when this thing actually goes to the moon? Thank you for all that you do. Nah, man. If you want to buy a Lambo, if that's your dream car and that's your trophy for the patience that you've had for this, knock yourself out. I think there's better ways to do that. I think buying a car wash that produces enough income to make the payment on the Lambo, or using the XRP to generate enough income to make the payments on the Lambo, probably better use of your resources. But if you want to splurge a little bit, here's the other deal that I've realized. And I've seen successful people do this. And so this is the reason I've come to the conclusion. If you continue to deprive yourself of the things that you wanted for your goals, then you don't get that dopamine. You don't get that reassurance. You don't want to continually drive forward. You're not going to get what you're after, right? So it's nice to have small goals or medium-sized goals or big goals where you have some type of trophy attached to them. And you don't get like, it's not like sports, right? It's not like state. It's not like things in high school where in business or in your life, somebody shows up with this plastic trophy for you or this ribbon. You get to treat yourself when you have success. If you want to buy a nice watch, if you want to buy a nice car, if you want to buy that house, those can all be things that you look at and you remember that success that you had at whatever point it was in your life that allowed you to afford that. So I know people knock those things. I think that they're a great way to network with people. I would encourage you to use them in that capacity if you do purchase high-end goods. You know, they're kind of a qualifier, right? Like if I see somebody with a Patek on, I'm like, got you. Okay. I see where you're at and what level you're on. Most people aren't going to notice that. They're going to notice a Rolex, right? I like subtle stuff. I like Aston Martin. It's not as loud as a Lambo. It's more of the James Bond, you know, kind of sleek, less noticeable, but still like if you know what it is, you get the nod, right? And to know what it is, you also kind of have to be a part of that echelon or class. So not knocking the Lambo. Talked to a guy just at the event that had an Aventador that showed me. And we'll talk to him, and he's got an M&A firm, and they're working with a very prominent magazine and publication to go public, which will be really cool. So you do you, brother. Like whatever your goals are, whatever your trophies are, just be smart about the resources and how you're going to pay for them is all I would say. I have seen people spend cash and buy a Lambo or a Bentley or whatever, but most of those people have regretted it. I'd rent it a couple times before you decide to buy it. That's much cheaper, and you can get that done in a day for like $3,500. Sit in it, drive it, feel it. I can tell you the last 3 people that I know that bought a Lambo all drove it for like a week, maybe 2 weeks, and they were done with it. Supercars trade more frequently than any other type of car. Most people that handle and deal with supercars, they trade something every 2 to 4 years. They're not holding on to it for extended periods of time because these people are mercurial, right? Like they want to swap things. So anyway, yeah, not going to hold your feet to the fire, but I think there are better ways to allocate your resources than just pay cash for a Lambo. Let's see here. We've got another super chat here. We got I'm XRP. I like the name. They say, as a California resident, I'm registering my LLC in Wyoming. In California, the form requires a California address for the agent for service of process, legal documents, etc. Does that defeat the purpose of the Wyoming LLC and reduce my anonymity? No, it doesn't, because anybody that looks up a public record, I don't know. I think that's internal to the state of California. I think it's for their tax code so that they can make sure that they're going to get their piece of, the state tax. You can't evade the state tax by, moving your assets to Wyoming. The best way to do this would be to purchase a property outside of California and then have that as your primary residence, residential address. It can be a dog, okay? It can be an ugly dog that you bought for $30,000, $50,000, $60,000 in foreclosure, okay? And if that's how you really want to remain anonymous, you can list that as your primary address and homestead it. And that's what can be attached to the LLC. And on the other side of price appreciation, if you've got the extra money, probably not a bad thing to do. When people go to look it up, or there is something that ties to it, or they ship something to that of the address, it's a beat up property. It's not anything that's yours, that you actually live in, right? But you can use it as your primary residence. So anyway, just things I've seen people do, not saying it's right or wrong. Obviously, if there's attorneys out there or tax professionals, are probably gonna be like, don't be doing that. You need to live in that residence if you're going to homestead it or call it your primary residence. If you do get audited, obviously that's a concern. But It doesn't defeat the purpose. The only thing there was just, you're going to have to pay state taxes if you reside in whatever state. You still get the capability to mitigate those taxes with how you spend the returns from your crypto, or the income off your crypto, or the capital gains off your crypto. Wyoming's still going to provide you the best legislation when it comes to protections for dealing in digital assets, and the anonymity component. Any public record there is going to be listed as the registered agent and us when we file it. So, or your attorney. It sounds like you may have used an attorney here. Anonymity, state tax, and yeah. So those are the three things, the main benefits of Wyoming. So you're not going to lose all of them, but on the taxes side, you're probably going to lose out unless you can, again, buy a residence there that's cheap and crappy. Hunt says, "Hey bro, what's up, man? Super awesome event in Dallas. Glad to see you there. Appreciate you coming." He said, "Really great meeting you. Can you help me understand the velocity per transaction on the XRPL?" Sure. So currently TPS on the XRPL at the high end is 1,500 transactions per second. Visa and MasterCard each alone do 30,000 transactions per second. So peer-to-peer payments, again, we talk about Hyperledger and what that's going to look like. We know that Visa and MasterCard are working with Ripple in some capacity and have had conversations with them because both of them have been at Swell and talked. When I asked Matt Hamilton about this, I talked to him about side chains and said, "Hey, could you set up side chains and then scale enough of those to be able to process 30,000 transactions per second?" And he was like, you got to set up like 200 side chains or 20 side chains just to get one of them, to do enough to be able to provide the payment infrastructure for the backbone of all the payment processors. You probably need close to like 200 side chains. And each one of those would have to have nodes on them. Like, it just becomes untenable. So what he stated was you need somebody to build an implicit or explicit subnet to the XRPL. And that's what would allow infinitely scalable transactions along with payment channels. Payment channels are live. Those exist between counterparties. But you need the implicit or explicit subnet. And I asked him about Cobalt. He's very rude sometimes to some people. He lives down there in Bermuda or Barbados or wherever it is. Very intelligent guy. So the arrogance, I can kind of get it a little bit. But he's always been respectful for me because I've always been respectful to him. I've never dogged him or said anything to, I always try to be like, "Hey, look, I know you're smart. Like, I'll ask you the question, right? And you tell me what you think." So that's what he stated after telling me that Cobalt was trash and it didn't exist. So I don't know if it does or not, but we need some type of implicit or explicit subnet to the XRPL to be able to transact at scale infinitely, to be able to process all the transactions that we're looking for. Is Codius that? I don't know. It's a smart contract platform that Ripple's been working on in the background for a long time. When I heard Brad speak at CoinAlts, he mentioned Codius and Global ID, which was cool to hear that from Ripple's CEO. So I don't think that's dead. We'll see what happens for Codius. We know that based on Kendra Hill and some of the other information that was put out early on, that it's poised for the derivatives market. And if you wanted to capture that, like, you need higher payment processing transactions and volume. So, that's where it sits. That's what we need. When does that happen? I'm not building it, but I'm sure somebody is. We have another super chat. We got Spencer. What's up? They say, how exactly does XRP earn passive income? When I have enough to have your company custody my XRP, passive profit taxable? How much left? Often is it paid out? It's good questions. So we use a hedge fund. We have an SPV that we spin up underneath the hedge fund, which is a special purpose vehicle. We aggregate XRP in kind. We hold it in institutional grade custody. You have full visibility of it the whole time. We reflect that value on another exchange, so there's no counterparty risk like there would be if you gave your XRP up to a DeFi protocol, or you had it on FTX, or you put it on one of these other platforms to generate yield where you are a creditor. You are not a creditor. We hold the XRP. You can see it. You have access to it. You can withdraw it. There are some constraints around that. But that credit line, there's a margin release against that reflected value on the exchange. And they trade like 50 or 60% of that credit line. There's no margin calls on this, or no potential losses on that side, because they never trade the full amount of the credit line. And the credit line just goes up and down with the value of XRP, right? So it's not like you borrowed against it at a certain interest rate. And they're able to take that and trade that in their market neutral strategy. So the whole point of a market neutral strategy is it makes money irrespective of market condition. It's not ever going to be a home run 100x, crazy meme coin deal, but it's going to be a consistent, 10 to 20% per year is the target for this stuff. So that's what we've orchestrated. Again, based on where we're at this month, my CIO sent me where things were. And again, both the funds that we have, the growth fund and the income fund, were up like 60, 70 basis points. Pretty modest. By the end of the month here, we're a few days out. Maybe we get to 1% returns for the month of April here on those funds. So you're not ever going to get super rich, but that's more money than you had with your XRP just sitting there, right? And it is cash. The distributions are paid on a quarterly basis. And the reason we do that is because these funds do have negative months occasionally. They mitigate downside risk, but that doesn't mean that they never have a negative month. The worst month for the income fund, I think, is like negative 2%. And the worst month for the growth fund, I think, is like negative 8 or 9%. So they do have some negative months, but they've never had a negative quarter. And so that's why we do quarterly distributions, because it's very likely based on, previous performance. And previous performance is not predictive of future performance, but it's a good indicator that you can look at, right? Like you can look at the tear sheets and see performance over that period. And if they continue to perform in that manner, then we won't have any negative quarters, hopefully. And everybody will always receive some type of payment on a quarterly basis. They are taxable. It is income. It's not short-term capital gains or anything, or long-term capital gains. This is cash in kind, or cash that you're getting from these strategies that would be income to the individual, and there would be taxes associated with it, just like your paycheck, right? But you really didn't have to do much, right? You just posted your XRP over here with us. It's insured. You have full visibility of it. You get all the protections and benefits that we provide on a risk scale of 1 to 10, 1 being no risk at all, 10 being all the risk in the world. I'd say that this is somewhere between 1.5 and 2. Okay, so there is some risk. The risk is they have a negative quarter. They have 2 or 3 bad months in a quarter that equate to a negative quarter. And in that circumstance, the XRP, you would lose, 1%, whatever they lost in the quarter, you would lose. But we would top that back up with the returns from the next month or next quarter. So you don't ever really lose XRP as long as you leave it in the fund. It's kind of like the investment, right? Like even if you're down, you don't lose money, even if it's down type thing. But that's the risk, right? Again, based on the track record and everything that we've orchestrated, we tried to mitigate that risk as much as we possibly can while doing it in a very regulated, buttoned up, insured, beneficial way for clients. So hopefully that answers your question. The accounts are insured up to $100 million. If we need more than that, we can get more than that. We can get species insurance on it. We talked to crypto.com today about some of the stuff that they got going on. So right now we're at Anchorage, and paid out on a quarterly basis. They are taxable, and that is the way that we do it with the sub-advisors we work with. And again, if you have any interest or questions on that, just reach out to digitalwealthpartners.net. You can email info@digitalwealthpartners.net, and they can tell you how you can participate in the strategies. And those are accredited, right? Like you do have to be accredited, but if you have interest, reach out anyway. Working on some other opportunities for people there. Off the Grid Hero says, seems very close to the moon. When expect 2 digits? I think you're just going to go right by 2 digits, man. I mean, maybe we make a pit stop at 50. ETFs, it feels like the perfect storm is brewing for all this stuff and has been for a long time. And this person says, as interest rates drop, say 2 or 3%, how does that affect returns? It won't. These are market neutral strategies. So I'll just give you like high and low end. And I probably should have done this before I hopped over here, so I apologize, Off the Grid Hero. The income strategy's worst year was 21% returns. Their best year was 37% returns. The growth strategy that compounds XRP and pays you more XRP, if they trade futures, they get paid out in kind. Their worst year, I believe, is 29% returns, and their best year was 47% returns. So they've done great, but again, there's negative months in there. So they have some months that are like, on the growth strategy, I've seen months as high as 12 or 15% returns. But they also have some months in there that are like negative 8 or 9% returns. So that's a little more volatile. It's probably a little higher on the risk curve, closer to that 2, versus the income fund. Their worst month ever was, again, like negative 2%. And their best months are lower than that, like single digits, 9%. Back in February, I think they had a 5% month back in February. Okay. So anyway, all that to say, interest rates aren't going to affect that. You've seen interest rates, that both of these funds have been around for 5 and 6 years apiece, where interest rates have been low and then risen. They've performed very similar, irrespective of interest rates. Again, they're market neutral strategies, so they're designed to make money irrespective of market condition. Whether it goes up or down or sideways, or interest rates go up or down or sideways, it doesn't matter. The strategies that they run are designed to generate a medium, return for people, irrespective of market conditions. Now, when things are going up and to the right, I will say it does better. We've got SB. They say, Jake, thank you for all that you do. Thank you for being here. I appreciate the kind words. They say, do you see all the spot ETFs getting approved at one time? Yes. Or slow in order as they were submitted when BlackRock submits. So if they don't approve them all at the same time like they did for the Bitcoin ETFs, then they're showing favoritism. And you can't do that. So Grayscale, they're going to know whether they're approved or denied by the 22nd. Could they get denied? Sure. I don't think that's going to be the case. Why would they go ahead and make futures live like 3 days before that? Interesting to me. But you're not going to see the big players jump in until after futures are live, because they need to be able to hedge. So that's why I think the 3 days there between the 19th and the 22nd of this month, I think could be really magical for the XRP ETFs going live and price appreciation and a lot of other things. Again, this is completely contingent on things actually panning out. Don't make financial decisions based on these dates. I'm not predicting anything. I don't have a crystal ball. I'm just saying it's very interesting the way that these things have lined up. So I'm bullish on it. I'm still buying more XRP, but you got to do you. So let's see here. We got Jason King with the super chat. Thank you. He says, hey, Jake, join the mastermind this month in Carbon 1. Whoop, whoop. Very cool. Glad to have you in there. He says, love all the info. I've enjoyed the town hall calls. My question is, how do you think the reverse trade is going to unfold? Thanks for all you guys do. Appreciate you, Jason. And if you guys, over here on TikTok or YouTube or X want to participate in the mastermind, you absolutely can. You can get a free month there in the mastermind at beyondbroke.com. You just put in the code BeyondBroke, all capitalized, the number 1, and then MO, like Mary Oscar, or the abbreviation for month. Get you a free month there in the group. So you can try it out. If you don't like it, don't have to stick around. No skin off either of our backs. And you can cancel at any time. It's not like we stick you into a contract or anything. So anyway, really appreciate you being part of the community. On the reverse carry trade, the dollar dropped today, the DXY. I don't know if you guys saw that. Gold pumped a little bit back up to 3,300. Still think gold's coming back all the way down to 2,000. Have a lot of people mad about that, but we'll see. I don't have a crystal ball. That's just my thesis. We'll see if I'm right or not. But yeah, when the dollar dropped, we saw the yen appreciate back to 142, 141. The danger zone for the yen and the unwind of the reverse carry trade is around 140. And when we see the 10-year treasury get to like 1.6, 1.5, 1.6 for Japan, that's where things start to get not so good. So we got an FOMC meeting here on February 6th and 7th. If the Fed lowers interest rates, that could be very interesting and as a catalyst to, one, pump the markets, but then shortly after that, have everything collapse on itself just in time for them to launch the ETF for XRP and drive a bunch of liquidity into it to save the day. We'll see if that happens or not. But things are poised for a rotation from large cap stocks into small caps or the Russell 2000, and that tends to be when breath opens in the crypto market and things kick off here for the altcoins. So I don't know that they're going to lower interest rates on the 6th and the 7th, but that makes a lot of sense with the way I see things playing out. And then we would go up before we went down. And I still think that's my thesis here. You know, I didn't know which way things were going to go, but I think we're going to get the melt up before we get the collapse. And then, you know, everything kind of rolls over to this new system to be able to save it. So that's my thesis. You know, we'll see. Again, I'm not a fortune teller. I don't have a crystal ball. This is just based on macroeconomics, what I'm seeing in the markets, all the other stuff that I watch, and all the other smart people that I listen to. So you make your own decisions, but appreciate the question. We've got Rise G. Interesting. They say, hey, Jake, from Las Vegas, thoughts? Interesting. Thoughts on Hidden Road live with XRP on May 19th. It's going to take a while. So I don't know where they're at in that acquisition. So just so people are, and I didn't know this stuff before we started dealing with it, right? Like we have an SEC registered RIA that I own underneath, you know, Digital Wealth Partners. And we've got a few partners in that, but Digital Ascension Group, excuse me. Digital Wealth Partners is the SEC registered RIA. So we've talked about, you know, buying a broker dealer or looking at becoming a broker dealer or adding that or partnering with broker dealers. There's a change of control that has to take place for that. So Hidden Road just announced an acquisition of a broker dealer. That transaction can take 3 to 6 months for change of control. It's not like an immediate thing. They are a prime broker, so they are a wirehouse. They can facilitate settlement of payments. They can release margin. They can do financing. This is the first time that this type of entity has ever been owned by somebody that was not a bank. It's kind of a big deal. So futures, again, would allow them to hedge and mitigate risk if they're using XRP to settle. So yeah, potentially, you know, after the 19th of May, we could see Hidden Road start to use XRP in the transactions for settlement and other applications and kind of corner Swift into doing the same. However, I don't know where they're at in that acquisition process. When they made the announcement, they obviously had finalized the deal. They were going to do $500 million in cash. They were going to do a portion of that in equity in Ripple, and then another portion was an earnout, right, for the owners. Probably something similar. And again, this is just me and my ignorance. I know what it takes to acquire a broker dealer, but a prime broker I haven't looked at. But I would suspect, because it's a regulated entity, there's probably a change of control that needs to happen that's at least going to take 3 months. So I'd have to better understand where Ripple is in that acquisition process to be able to tell you if they're actually going to be able to go live with XRP on the 19th. They should be able to hedge based on the futures, but it might take a little bit longer. And I think they would probably need a higher price XRP to be able to facilitate that and do what they want with it. So we're talking to them about other things. that will bring to light for you guys when they're ready. But keep that under wraps for now. We got Steve Taylor. He says Heidi, but howdy from Dallas. Jake, thanks for your help and guidance you provide. As bullish as we are on XRP, what is the possible downside to invest in the XRP ETF? So it is a 2 times leveraged long XRP ETF, and it does trade futures to the long. So if we saw a downward movement in the market, you'd get twice the downward movement, just like you would twice the upward movement. So that's the risk that you're taking. It's a levered deal, and to participate in it, you're likely going to have to let your broker know that you're qualified to be able to do so, that you're educated, that you understand the risks associated with a leveraged position. Not everybody can get access to that, and sometimes your broker won't allow you to because your financial advisor doesn't feel you're equipped enough financially to be able to handle losses if you have them. So just know that going in, there could be downside, there could be problems, but if there's upside, that's where you make a bunch of money. So it depends on what you think is going to happen in the market. We got Shade Spot. They say $10. Oh, thank you for the super chat. They say, hey, mate. Nazi, very good. BRICS announcing their CBDC and the ability to transact outside SWIFT. Is this live now? Where do they transact? Does XRP not just have liquidity yet? Tired of the speculation. I'm here to not speculate for you. So CHIPS is the system that BRICS will use, or BRICS Plus. They've got like 79 nations that have signed on with them at this point. I think it'll be way more than that when they're said and done, that want to de-risk and participate away from the dollar's hegemony and outside the SWIFT system. You need interoperability between those systems. Like, you can't just shut off global trade to the US. It would cripple all of the other economies across the world. India, like Apple's moving all their manufacturing to India by 2026 to avoid the tariffs that now Trump has placed on China. So you can't do that. Like, we're too intermingled at this point, and you need something that allows for interoperability between those payment networks, and that's what XRP does. It's an agnostic bridge asset that people can trust the protocol and transact with the asset real time, so that you're mitigating the counterparty risk or holding a counterparty's currency. Removes Nostro Vostro accounts, right? There's not enough liquidity in XRP yet for global transactions at scale, for SWIFT or CHIPS. You're going to need substantially higher price, somewhere between $50 and $100 XRP would start to crack into that, where it could be used in that application. And that'd probably be closer to like 10% of SWIFT. If you wanted more of SWIFT, if you wanted a total of, 5 trillion a day, you do the math on that. Depends on how much XRP is available for that settlement. Again, based on the calculator that Robbie Mitchnick put together, who's the head of digital assets at BlackRock, it had a limit of using the same XRP 10 times a day. I don't think you're going to use the same XRP 10 times a day, but let's say you did, and you had 10 billion XRP available for 5 trillion, looking at $50 XRP, right? And that's if all those XRP was then used 10 times a day, which they won't be. So it'd have to be a higher price than that. But yeah, there's not enough liquidity in the asset yet, and it's still speculative. XRP is speculative. Just so you guys know, there's very little utility to XRP at this moment on the mainnet. They use it in ODL, but they have to utilize Uphold as an intermediary, and they really don't even loan out the XRP. Ripple sends it to Uphold. Uphold swaps it for whatever fiat currency the bank wants. They send it to the bank. The bank uses that fiat currency for 7 days. They pay it back with interest. Uphold swaps it back to XRP. They pay back Ripple. Until we have stable coins and CBDCs on the EVM sidechain, the utility for XRP is not there. The demand that you're seeing right now is people positioning themselves for the spot ETF. That is what's caused the appreciation and sustained volume here at $2-ish for XRP. Until we see higher demand either through the ETFs or the utility of the asset or the need for the utility for the asset to be able to settle transactions or provide liquidity, we're just going to probably trend sideways here. And I hate that. I talked about dark pools in the video earlier today that we put out. There are large buy orders that are coming across for XRP that are not affecting the price. Once that supply runs out, then we'll see the price gap up and move to where the real demand is. But until then, as long as there's enough supply in those dark pools, probably just going to trend sideways here for a little while longer. So could we see a run up in anticipation of the ETFs? Absolutely. We saw that for Bitcoin, like I talked about earlier, and we could be at the start of that right now. We've started to see a 10% rise in XRP over just the last couple of days here. So are we on the upswing? Absolutely could be. But we're going to need a lot more liquidity in XRP before they're able to transact over these global systems for payments. Let's see here. We have Wayne. What's up, Wayne? He says, I think I called the decoupling last week. See you in Vegas on the 28th. Can I bring a guest to the Mastermind meeting, or do they need a membership also? No, you can bring a +1. Absolutely. We'd love to have them. And yeah, just make sure they register on the Luma there, because we're trying to get an accurate head count. The space that we have is like 250, 300 people max. And so I think we currently have 110 people registered for that event, and we're a month out. So I do anticipate that we will see even more people register in the period that, until the event happens. So just, yeah, if you are going to bring a +1, please have them register through the same link. Would be much appreciated. And you may have called the decoupling. We saw stocks were up today. XRP was down. So, gold down, or gold was up, dollar was down, but XRP was down too. So normally when you see the dollar down in value, you see other assets go up. Maybe we are decoupled, man. Be nice if we were.
Babe,
yeah.
They want you to wave if you're real, proof you're not an AI.
I'm not an AI. I'll wave at you. My wife is in the comments. We got Cole. He says, hey, Jake, your insights give us... you're not a peasant. Cole, don't talk about yourself like that. You're not a peasant. He says, thank you. Is David S., I'm assuming shorts, one of the Satoshi's top 3 black swan scenarios, usher in global XRP utility, rough timeline, Moon Sheriff out. Interesting character, this Cole. I like it. Black swan scenarios. Solar flare. Somebody cuts the cords between the US and the EU for transmission on the seafloor. EMP. Like, those would all be like bad black swans. I think the only one that they could probably get away with would be like a solar flare or a fake solar flare, or an EMP disguised as a solar flare. And again, I'm putting my tinfoil hat on here because you asked me to. But I don't think that any of those things are going to happen. Maybe they do. Maybe I'm wrong. But I don't think that that's anything that's going to transpire. I think you will have chaos. There will be chaos in markets, and there will be other things going on when XRP takes off. But I don't, like, there's a lot of people who talk about blackouts and a bunch of other crazy stuff. I don't know that I buy into all that stuff. We'll see. I could be wrong. And I would love to be wrong on that, but it seems a little out there to me. So is David S. one of the Satoshis? I don't think David was actually one of the Satoshis, but I think he knows them all. And I don't know if, I think Arthur Brito is probably one of the Satoshis. If you were going to pick either him or David, I think Arthur was probably involved. Arthur's very private. He is not public facing. It's difficult to find photos of him on the internet. Why is my question. So David's very public facing, and he's publicly stated before that he wasn't part of Satoshi or the quorum of people that developed Bitcoin. And I believe him. but I do think he knows all the people that were. We have Kathy DM. She says, "Good day, Jake. Just transferred my Trust XRP to Anchorage custody. Awesome. Glad to have you on board. Does the value of the assets need to be over 5 million before they can earn yield? Nope. We can do, if you are participating and you are accredited, we have opportunities right now that you can participate in. You just need to reach out. The next capital call to be able to start generating returns is May 1st. So you have a few days here. I would reach out like pretty quickly so that you can get the document signed and participate. That window may have already closed. This is a good time to mention this here. People are always like, hey, I don't want to have to pay the fees. I want to come on and generate returns very quickly to be able to cover the fees. Because we do have fees. We're just like, I don't want to say we're just like any other asset manager. We're not like any other asset manager, but we still have costs like they do, right? Like I've got compliance, I've got overhead, we've got partnerships, I've got payroll. There's a lot of stuff, and we don't make money. Just to be transparent with you guys, like I'm hoping that one day all this makes money, but I wanted to have this in place for people before XRP popped off. Okay, so anything we've ever made, I basically just roll back in, and we hire more personnel. My wife, has her opinions about that, but I digress. So, and we've hired 4 more advisors here in May to make sure that we can provide the 700 clients that have onboarded the best advice and service that we can. You don't have to have over 5 million. You don't have to be a qualified client. You do have to be accredited to participate in the fund. But here's the kicker. We are currently working to have opportunities. This is my compliance guys lingo. Working to have opportunities for everybody to be able to generate returns on their assets in June. So if you have interest in that, again, right now it's accredited only. Just reach out and start a conversation with us. And if you were to move your assets in May, then there might be a way based on the returns in June and the payout in July where you can mitigate fees, right? So probably shouldn't say this publicly, but they'll get over it. So anyway, if you have interest in that, please reach out. The minimums at Digital Wealth Partners are $500,000 in digital assets, or you have to have at least 100,000 XRP. If you meet either one of those requirements, then we would love to work with you. We can provide you institutional grade custody. You get your own advisor. You get insurance on your assets. You can add your beneficiary, your wife, your spouse. Make sure that everybody has visibility. You don't have to worry about them knowing anything about how to do a wallet or exchanges or all the other crazy stuff in crypto. You know that they're going to get all the stuff and access to it if, God forbid, something happens to you. So that's in place. And we do have these opportunities currently for accredited investors to be able to participate and earn returns on their XRP. But in June, we're looking to have other opportunities. So if that interests you, please reach out. You would want to have your assets in May in institutional custody in order to participate in June. Oh, man. Kurt, appreciate you, man. It was really good to see you this week. Appreciate you coming out. He says, the Digital Fusion Summit was a great turnout. It was great to see both you and T on the tech panel cooking. Looking forward to the space evolving after regulation. As always, thanks for the work that you signed the Megazord. Yeah. So if you guys don't know Kurt, he's been around for a long time. And he does have, Algorand and IOTA and XRP and XLM and XDC all connected to make the Megazord. Which is the new financial system. And I think he's on point with that. So again, thank you so much for the consideration and coming out and being part of that, brother. It was really good to see you in person and shake your hand, look you in the eye, and look forward to doing business with you in the near future. We got Group 1 Gavin. He says, "G'day, legend." So good. Feeling like we're sitting quietly in the eye of the storm at present. Excited to see your opening grin on the first live chat. Once we have a significant price jump soon, things are cooking. I will have a very large grin. when things actually kick off here. It's been a long time coming, and I know people have been waiting a long time for this. And I just, I wanted to make sure that we had all this stuff in place for people, because the institutions they don't care about you. If you own XRP, they care about Bitcoin people, they care about ETH, they care where the liquidity is. They do not have institutional grade custody for the average person. They don't have ways to generate returns on your XRP. They don't have ways to borrow against your XRP. We know because we've had to build it all, and we've shown them that it's possible. And now they're starting to take interest. But previous to us putting this together, there wasn't anything. And I realized that. And so 2 years ago, that's why I set out to build all this, to make sure that people had these opportunities before price appreciation. And as soon as price appreciation's here, they have the ability to do all those things. And then they don't have to sell, right? Like if you can park your XRP somewhere and know that it's safe and insured, and you can get a return on it in a very safe, risk mitigated way. We're working on other options for yield, where it's not just returns, it's a structured income strategy. We don't have that yet, but we're working on it. And that's kind of the last thing on the list for me, because we have the ability to borrow against it. We have a ton of liquidity that's willing to be able to be provided against XRP. And we have ways to generate returns on XRP without DeFi. And once DeFi is around, we will definitely incorporate that. We want to. I'm actually on a podcast with Hugo here in the near future, so you guys stay on the lookout for that. But yeah, just super proud of what we built, and thank you so much for the kind words. Excited for the blessings that are coming our way. We've got a couple more super chats here. Daniel with the super chat. He says, "See me in the parking lot. I call I-65 in a Toyota Camry 2000 for 20K." Yeah, if you're, I've spent many days driving home on 635 in the parking lot. If there's a wreck or anything, it's, even though it's 6 lanes, she gets shut down, and it's hours until you get home. So hopefully you're not having to do that a whole lot longer, brother. Happy days. They say, "Hey, Jake, your team asked me to wait until they launch XRP staking." It wasn't my team, because we don't have XRP staking. This is a scammer you're talking to. And so maybe this is a good point. Maybe I should bring this up. If we message you, it's not me. It's not my team. It's not anything I have to do with. Okay, if they're telling you to copy trades or invest in Bitfinex or anything else, like Digital Wealth Partners is real. And if we work with Anchorage, and there's a bunch of paperwork that you have to sign, and you have to go through KYC, like there's a whole bunch of stuff before we can even work with you, before we would ever ask you to move your XRP. Okay. And I can guarantee you, nobody on my team ever said XRP staking, because that doesn't exist. Okay. And we have to be very specific. There's no such thing as XRP staking. So if anybody told you that, they're a scammer. Anyway, he says, "Are you confident that XRP staking by July?" Again, there's no such thing as staking. There's returns. We have a specific way that we do that to mitigate risk. It is not DeFi. It is not. And I know people like mix this verbiage, so maybe I'm just beating you up here, but I want to be specific about this. If anybody reaches out to you and tells you to do anything with your XRP, and you haven't gone through KYC, you haven't gone to Digital Wealth Partners, you haven't talked to an advisor, it's a scam. Okay. So not sure where you heard this. I guarantee you nobody on my team said the word staking in the conversation with you. If you're relaying that and saying returns or generating returns on your XRP, okay, I understand how you could have that misconception. But I just, again, want to be very specific. There's no such thing as staking for XRP, and it's nothing that we will ever provide until, maybe Flare Network or there's some DeFi stuff, but today that does not exist. So no is the answer. We will not have staking in July. We got Mr. Paul Polite. He says, "Hola from from down under. Do you think XLM will mirror XRP's behavior when price appreciates? Thanks for all that you do, Carbon One member. You rock. Awesome, brother. Glad to see you in the mastermind. Thank you so much for the support and being part of the community. I don't think XLM will mirror XRP's price, and I know that's going to catch a lot of people off guard. But I can tell you, and this is the reason why. So November 2023, there was a news that came out that BlackRock was going to, they had filed for a trust for an iShares XRP trust. It was fake, blah, blah, blah. I don't think it was fake. But when that happened, you saw XRP jump. The rest of the market stayed even. XLM doesn't have any ETFs. And so because of that, I think you're going to see a significant decoupling from XRP and XLM. And again, this is just my thesis, just my 2 cents. I'm just some guy on the internet. I'm basing this on previous experiences and other things, and just things I've seen in the market. So don't take it as gospel. But that's why I don't own any XLM. I think there is going to be a decoupling for XRP away from everything else in the market. I think it's going to be going vertical while everything else is burning, potentially. And so, again, just my 2 cents. We'll see if I'm right or not. Don't have a crystal ball, but I do think that those two are going to decouple, even though they've been highly correlated for the majority of their relationship and time that they've existed. Ruben, he says, hey, Jake, as a very new guy investing in XRP, buying today's price, do you think it's still worth it? And what price range would you consider not buying anymore? Thanks. Also want to join the mastermind. We'd love to have you, man. We have education there from beginners to very advanced in Carbon 2. We talk about estate planning, talk about basic protection for your digital assets and how to, mitigate risk and fraud. Set yourself up for success. So we would love to work with you there if you're interested. And again, if anybody's interested over here on TikTok, X, or on YouTube, you can just go to beyondbroke.com. And the code for a free month there in the group is beyondbroke, all capitalized, the number 1, and then MO gets you a free month there in the group. So we'd love to have you there, Ruben. I'll just put it to you this way, and this is how I've stated it before. Would you be mad if you bought Bitcoin at $2? If you missed it at 50 cents and you bought it at $2, would you be mad? I don't think so. I don't think you'd be mad. I think you would be very happy that you actually took, it had gone up 4x, but you still bought it and it still went up, what is that? 5,000 times since then? More than that, 50,000 times. I don't know that you're going to get quite that much return on XRP. Over the long term, I think you will. I think that XRP will be 6 and 7 digits a ways from now. Okay, so it depends on how long you're going to hang out here. Okay, but I would just position it that way. If you don't think you would have been mad buying Bitcoin at $2, then you're probably not going to be mad buying XRP at $2. Honest Aim, hey brother, hope you're doing well. He said, did my super chat at the top before the start roll. Did I miss it here? I don't see it, Honest Aim. I'm sorry. But I do appreciate you and the wife, and I was really good to see you guys this week. Appreciate y'all being at the event and all the support that you guys have for us. Hope that you guys are well, and appreciate you seeing you here on the live. We've got Hunt. He says, regarding my velocity question earlier, I like it. I've been hearing that each XRP token can be used multiple times at the same price for different transactions. Wouldn't that affect price appreciation? It would, and that's why I stated what I stated earlier in the Swift conversation. So again, this is just predicated on the calculator that Robbie Mitchnick put together. It's hard to find. If you can find it out there, post it in the chat for everybody to use. But it basically gave you like how to predict XRP's price. And in that calculator, it said XRP can be used up to 10 times per day. So if that's what he says, Robbie Mitchnick's the head of digital assets at BlackRock, I'm probably going to believe him, right? Like, why would he put that constraint in there if that wasn't true? So to your point, it said multiple times, same day, different transactions. It definitely would affect price, because then you have more available supply, technically, right? Because you could use the same amount of supply up to 10 times per day in order to be able to move value. And so that's why I kind of broke it down in the manner that I did and said, there's 10 billion XRP, you got to move $5 trillion a day, but you can use those same XRP up to 10 times a day. So that would be a $50 XRP versus a $500 XRP the other way, right? Now, are they all going to be used 10 times a day? No. Is there likely going to be less supply than that available in those transactions? Probably. So we'll see. I think it could be a substantially higher price in order to be able to process those transactions at scale. Swift would be okay with 1,500 transactions per second. They're not like a MasterCard or Visa that needs 30,000. So anyway, it's a very good point that you make there. And yes, it definitely would affect the potential price. This person says XRP already hit its peak. I would respectfully disagree. Thoughts on Mark Carney, new Prime Minister of Canada, connections to Ripple? Yeah, so when he was at the Bank of England before Christine Lagarde, he was the first person that ever made remarks about displacement of the US dollar that didn't get persecuted. So Mark's been in on this deal the whole time, and I think he knows exactly what's going to happen. I think he's, a lot of people are going to be mad about this, but I'm going to say it anyway. He's better than Trudeau. He's still not great, but I think that he does understand what's happening, is probably the best person to have in that position right now. Over the long term, I don't know that he's the best prime minister for Canada. I know a lot of people don't necessarily agree with him or like him. There's a lot of people that don't like Trump, right? But again, kind of in the circumstances that exist today, I think just based on everything, probably the best person to have that in that position. And maybe that's orchestrated, maybe it's not. Is the world a stage? I don't know. But yeah, those are my thoughts on Mark. Your thoughts on XRP also. What's your thoughts on the Ledger or Arculus wallet? I know people that have lost money on Ledger. There's currently some things going on with that. So I prefer decent if you're going to hold it on a cold wallet. If you have less than $500,000 worth of crypto and you don't want to hold it in institutional custody, then decent is my go-to choice. Again, for a lot of reasons. You get a 25th password. They have the largest breadth of assets. You got a thumbprint or biometric for releasing payments or transactions. And the UI is just super friendly in comparison to most of the other wallets. This person says, I have 60,000. Don't tell people what you got, King Road King. He says, I got 60,000 XRP tokens. How long do you think it would take for that to be over $1 million? It's predicated on events. I mean, we can just do the math here. You would need, what's 1 million divided by 60,000? 10 would be, 600,000. So you need roughly $20 per XRP to be over $1 million. I think that could happen here in 2025 just with the ETFs, right? So I don't know. We'll see. We got Rob. He says, is it more likely that the SEC will announce the terms of settlement with Ripple before the continuance runs out, or that they ask to extend? Kind of correlates with when the ETFs could potentially be approved and when the CME goes live. So I don't think so. I think that they're all going to wrap it. Just again, kind of everything's correlated for the perfect storm here. I think that's all going to wrap up about the same time as those go live, and everything's going to be able to move forward. Living Legacy says, Jake, will you go back and check for super chats missed at the end? I absolutely will. I will use what you told me earlier today and try to find the gear on here to just swap it over to specifically super chats. I don't see how to do that though. So I'm going to have a hard time with that because I don't have the same screen that you have. But yeah, I'll scroll back up and see if I can find them. We got Steve Sell. He says, is XDC capable or likely to outperform Ondo in the situation of full use case? Yeah, I could see that. Ondo's primarily focused on treasuries. There's a huge market there for treasuries, but XDC, I don't know if you watched my video on tokenization and traction of different assets and networks, but I'd recommend going to check that out. You can see where XDC has traction. Basically, anything that's a note or a written document that has value can be tokenized on XDC's network. So debt warrants, debt notes, warrants, trade finance, receivables. There's lots of things that could end up on XDC that would cause it. I guess you're asking for ROI here, right? So Ondo's already a decently high price. I don't know how much higher it's going to go. It could, if it really took off. But personally, I think XDC, well, I can't say should or will or any of those things. I think that it'll outperform Ondo. But again, I'm just some guy on the internet. So do your own research. and like, here, look, I know that sounds like a cop-out to a lot of people, but I do want to say this. I operate a regulated entity and I'm associated with it, and I have to be very specific. And I try to make sure I come on here and provide as much value as I can in a legal, compliant way. So I have to put the disclaimers around stuff. We got 5-star painters. They say, do you see Circle entertaining the payment arena with their CPN as a threat or competition to XRP with settlements, SMU alumni? No. I think that they will end up issuing USDC on the EVM sidechain on the XRPL and likely integrate with that. Circle and Ripple are super friendly. I don't know if you've seen that or not. Every time we've been at Consensus, we see them intermingling, like talk with both of them. I think that they're going to be utilizing the XRPL to settle and issue USDC in the future. So no, I don't see them as competition. And so maybe this is the other misconception people have. Circle deals with merchant services and payment providers and bank accounts and all that. Ripple is selling to the institutions themselves, not to retail, where that's kind of what Circle's focus is. So they would be one of the intermediaries or institutions or banks or partners that Ripple would integrate with and provide solutions to. While Circle has their own payment licenses and a lot of things, there are some things that Ripple has that they don't, that they've made acquisitions of and could benefit them. So I don't see them really as competition. I see them as co-opetition, which there's a lot of that here in this space. Scrolling back up like Living Legacy asked me to do. We are an hour and 20 minutes in here, so we'll probably hang out for another 10 minutes, and I'll try to make sure that I get all of the super chats for the wonderful people that paid for those. We got Duders. What's up, man? He says, Jake, your thoughts on potential price / utility for Constellation, DAG, and Holochain. Worth investing, good ROI. Do you personally trade HBAR for more XRP? Would you personally trade HBAR for more XRP? I have. I've sold my HBAR for XRP. So there's your answer on that one. But that was at a lot lower price too. So up to you. DAG, I think, is a sleeper. So there's a few people that run nodes on the network that I'm not overly thrilled with. They seem super, I don't have a better word, douchey. But outside of that, Ben Jorgensen was awesome. He was at our event. Their team is awesome. I think that they are a sleeper. They're not listed on a ton of exchanges. You can only get it on Uphold. We talked to Crypto.com about potentially listing them today. So we'll see, get them in contact. We'll see if it happens or not. Holochain, I think, is also very interesting for the high throughput and security that it provides. The volume that you can put through Holochain is wild. So, I really like DAG. It's 5 cents. I think just on speculation alone, if it were to get listed on other exchanges, it could be significantly higher than it is because it's difficult to acquire and most people don't know about it. So just on that alone, I think you could see a run. As far as utility goes, I think it's going to get that too because they have government contracts and a bunch of other stuff that people aren't talking about. So up to you. depends on what you think for ROI on stuff. I'm not here to tell you that. You said good ROI question mark. I don't know what good ROI means to you in crypto. Is good ROI 100x? Is it 2x? If it's 2x, yeah, 10 cents. I think Dad could easily get to 10 cents. Could it get to $50? Maybe. That's probably on the high end for my price target for it. But yeah, those are my answers, and I appreciate the super chat, and hopefully that provides you some value and clarity. We got Onyx. They say, hey, Jake, can you explain the passive income piece you mentioned in the past live? Was trying to explain to my buddy. You used 25K as an example. Please explain the concept again. Thank you very much. So just for you, appreciate you on the super chat. Talked about this earlier, but I'll go over it again. Let's say you had $500,000 in XRP. We'll just call it that. You're probably not going to put all of that in the fund. Let's say you're going to put $100,000 worth of that XRP in the fund. Okay, you're going to leave 4/5 there. Maybe you're going to borrow against it. You're going to do some other stuff. You put that in the fund. On a quarterly basis, you're paid returns of whatever is made that quarter. That could be wildly different. It could be 1%. It could be 20%. That's why it's returns and not yield. Okay, so that's the difference in those. Yield is a consistent return that's guaranteed. There are no guarantees with anything we provide. So just to be clear, we've done what we can with what we have. We're working on those other options, but they don't exist yet. So these counterparties that we work with that have proven traded strategies have generated somewhere between 21 on the low end and 47 on the high end percent returns per year, with very low risk of loss in comparison to the majority of stuff in the market. They're market neutral. You don't have counterparty risk, so the assets never leave institutional custody. You do put them in the fund, so you have visibility of them. They are reflected on the exchange or the counterparty's exchange. The margin release is issued against them. They don't trade the full line of credit ever, so we've mitigated all risk of loss there. And so, that's why we're targeting somewhere between 10 and 20%, because you only get an 80% margin release against the XRP, and they're only trading 50 or 60% of that. So we believe that, reasonably, based on previous performance, targeting 10 to 20% probably makes sense. And again, you could have, here could be the 4 quarters. So let's say it's $100,000. The first quarter you got 1% returns, you got 10 grand. The next quarter you got 8% returns, you got $80,000. The next quarter could be $50,000, and the last quarter could be another $10,000. So over the year, you would have made 15% returns, but the distributions on a quarterly basis could be wildly different, right? So that's we don't have a way to do consistent stuff yet. We're working on lettered treasury strategies and a bunch of other things for consistent returns, but those are going to be lower. Like, they're not going to be 15 or more. They're going to be somewhere between 4 and 6% for consistent returns. So if you have a lot of XRP and you don't want to risk it at all, which some of our clients do, that's where they'll park it. And those people tend to have, shorter time horizons and lower risk tolerance and be much closer to retirement. So anyway, we're working on those strategies, but hopefully that gives you a little bit better clarity about how the sausage is made in the background and how this works and how we've orchestrated it. We are the only people doing this. There's nobody else that is funding funds legally and securities offerings in kind with XRP and then working with other institutional players to generate returns. If you wanted access to the people that we are partnered with, you need at least $25 million just to approach them. And we're giving it to people that have $50,000 worth of XRP. Like, that's the minimum to participate in the funds that we offer. So what do you expect XRP's price after July 14th? It's a random date. I'm not going to even entertain it. When do you expect? Everybody on TikTok always wants to know price. They don't ever ask like educated questions over here on TikTok. I mean, I'm not knocking TikTok. I'm just saying that's what everybody's focused on over here. Seen anything on class action lawsuit being filed against XRP? Something about dark pools? Don't listen to stupid people, DJ. When will the hidden road transactions be actually implemented on the XRPL? Sometime after the acquisition is finalized and XRP is at a significantly higher price. In your opinion, is Tangent Cold Wallet safe to hold your XRP? I like Zaman, or used to be Zum, and use a Tangent card with that. I think that's a really good solution for XRP in particular. Just want to give TikTok some love. I try to focus on these super chats over here and make sure everybody gets answered if they're going to ask the questions. We got Neil. Appreciate you, brother. He says, "What's up? What's up, bro? Are you still working on new ways to become a? Are you still working on new ways to become a credited investor on the other side of price appreciation? And what does that look like?" I'm not sure if you phrased the question correctly. We are working on opportunities for anyone that is a client of Digital Wealth Partners to be able to generate returns. So if you have interest in that, you can absolutely reach out. But if you want to become accredited, there's only two ways here in the U.S. You can take your 65, but the main two ways are you make enough money. So if you're single, you make $200,000 a year for 2 years in a row. If you're married, $300,000 a year for 2 years in a row. Or you have $1 million of net worth outside your primary residence. Like those are really the only two ways that you can qualify as accredited. But yeah, we're working on opportunities for people. So if you have interest in that, please reach out and they can tell you more about it. Group One Gavin says, "Jake, do you personally think that Ripple has any more tricks up their sleeves? It seems like they're continuing to spin our heads with new announcements and new possibilities. Hope you're well." Appreciate it, man. Hope you're well. Yeah, I think that there's going to be a lot more partnerships that are announced based on the 1,700 NDAs that they have in the near future. I think there's going to be a lot of stuff that people just aren't even expecting. So yes, I think they have a lot more tricks up their sleeve. We got Brandon G. He says, "Hey Jake, thanks for lending us your brain. Will 40% investment company rule apply to XRP if it's not considered a security?" It's a good question. There's a couple different exemptions that you can meet. So yeah. Your yes is the short answer. If it's not considered a security, then it's not going to matter because that's an SEC rule where you'd have to register if any more than 1% or 40% of your investments from the corporation are invested in one specific security. That's a good point. I need to bring that up to my compliance officer. But separate of that, you can qualify. There's a couple other provisions. The one that I'm likely going to use, I use myself and other people, is the family office exemption that you provide in the Dodd-Frank Act. If you're investing your own capital, you're not pooling capital for anybody else. Like, you don't qualify as an investment company. You're just investing your own money. So Dodd-Frank in 2010, they passed a provision for family offices that allows them to invest their own money with no registration with the SEC. So I would assume that you would be in that same group. Rob, he said the terms of the settlement. I don't know what the terms of the settlement are going to be. I mean, basically everything's been disclosed at this point. So I would assume that they would stay pretty similar. He says it is, well, so this is his previous one. It is more likely that the SEC will announce the terms of the settlement with Ripple before the continuation runs out, or that they ask to extend. I think that it's going to be around the same times that the ETFs is approved. It's kind of what I stated before. And I'll run back through here and make sure I didn't miss any other super chats. And we'll scroll all the way back down to the bottom. Again, I do miss super chats every once in a while, and I apologize if I ever do that to anybody. if that happens, please reach out on social media, and I will make sure that you get your question answered. There's been a few people that have let me know that I messed up, and I'm happy to answer their question because I know when I want to make sure if you pay, like you get your answer. Looks like all the ones that I have visibility on. Yeah, I don't see anything here that I missed. I know that we get a couple people thinking that they put one in here, and maybe they did, but I don't see it because the way that the live is working tonight. So we're gonna pull it back down to the bottom. If we got any more here before we wrap it up, we got Hunt. Is the last one. He says, following up on the last question, prevent utilization transactions. Don't forget, I'll build your house after price appreciation. I'm game, man. It's good to see you at the event. He says, does it storing XRP on cold, XRP prevent it from being utilized for transactions? Yeah, it locks it up. So anybody that's holding XRP and it's not available in the supply to be out there to be able to be transacted with by your counterparties, you are literally locking up XRP to help bolster the price, just like Bitcoin, right? Like there's a ton of people holding Bitcoin and people want Bitcoin. There's a lot of demand and not enough supply there. And so the price rises. Supply and demand, very basic economics. We got Mark Hayes. He says, hey, Jake, upon institutional adoption, do you foresee the current UNL validators be replaced by the likes of Bank of America, JP Morgan? The Beyond Broke Mastermind is great. Awesome. Glad to have you part of the community, and thank you for being there and the kind words. So I don't know that you're going to see the UNL validators be replaced. I think it'll just expand. So the UNL validators are the 35 trusted validators that all been like all the other validators that are on the network trust them and know who they are, basically. But you could definitely see some large institutions, but we already have some institutions that are validating transactions on the network that are not part of the UNL. And we also have universities and other enterprises that are running validators to be able to transact. The SEC, anyway. So do those change out? They definitely possibly could. And I think people are like, XRPL is centralized. It's not centralized. Like there's literally one of the best governance mechanisms of any blockchain is built out on the XRPL for the addition of amendments and other things. 80% consensus and held for 2 weeks and all the other things that they have in place across 35 individuals. Only 3 of those are Ripple, right? So they're literally like 10% of the validators that vote on something are Ripple, and then less than 10%, 8%. So they're not going to be influencing any choices. And there's been lots of times where they've proposed stuff and people have fought back on it for months. So yeah, but they could become a bit more like, I won't say centralized, but self-serving if these larger institutions were to become validators and were given the UNL. Is ADA worth holding? Trade for Ondo. I can't give you financial advice. I don't hold either one of them. However, I talked to a family office today that's got over $100 million in Cardano. So I don't know. I don't know what Cardano is going to be used for. I know Ondo is going to be used for treasury tokenization, and I know what the global market cap for that is, and I can tell you it's pretty high. So until ADA has an actual use case and Charles decides what that's going to be, there's a lot of speculation, right? I like the network. I like what it does. I think that there's potential. I just need a bit more since we're moving into utility here. So out of those two, I probably like Ondo better personally. That doesn't mean that it's going to be worth more or there's a higher ROI or any of that. It just means that there's actual real world utility on Ondo right now. But again, I don't hold either one of them. So appreciate you on the super chat. And I think that might be it for this evening. Yeah, Yeah, I'm going to scroll one more time to the bottom, make sure I'm not missing anything. Living Legacies reminded me of this. So, we did increase the price on the LLC, so it's $2,000. If you use the code 50OFF DAG LLC, you go to the link right there, digitalfamilyoffice.io/services/LLC entity formation. If you do want to position yourself and make sure that you can mitigate taxes and set yourself up for success on the other side of price appreciation, if you have more than $50,000 to $80,000 invested in digital assets, I would highly recommend setting up an LLC. It doesn't have to be through us, but we've done 800 of these at this point. We are the leader in the industry. We know what we're doing, and we've got it set up the right way. So if you want it at the best price and the best service and best product, we can provide that for you if you do want to work with us. On the other side of that, if you need institutional grade custody or you want to be able to generate returns on your XRP, please reach out to Digital Wealth Partners. You can go to the contact us form at digitalwealthpartners.net. And then one last time, if you do want to check out the Mastermind, we'd love to see you there. We're going to have another event in Vegas in correlation with XRP Vegas on the Wednesday night. If you are in the group, you'll know where that's at. But if you do want to check that out for the next month, you'd be able to sneak in to that event for free if you use the code BeyondBroke, all capitalized, the number 1, and then MO gets you a free month there in the group for Carbon One and for Social. So with that, I hope you guys have a wonderful evening. Thanks for hanging out with me on a Monday night. I hope you'll have a wonderful week, and we will see you guys on the next one.